Hello and welcome. My name is Amanda Lowe from the IoT Partner Acceleration Team, and I'm here today with Matthew Smith from TensorIoT. And today we're talking about the Semtech and TensorIoT Smart Building IoT Reference Kit. This kit delivers a superior out-of-the-box experience that includes hardware, connectivity, and a web user interface for building owners. Now let me introduce our speaker. Matthew Smith from TensorIoT is a product manager responsible for defining TensorIoT's product strategy for connected workspaces and connected factories. Matt is an AWS certified solution architect and has an extensive background in product management in the aerospace, transportation, defense, and manufacturing industries. Matthew, thank you for joining me. I'll now turn the presentation over to you.
Well, thanks, Amanda. I really appreciate being here. It's really good to have a chance to talk a little bit about how we have partnered with AWS and Semtech on putting together a nice, simple solution to help organizations explore LoRaWAN in a smart building context in a really low risk and low cost fashion. I'll start just really quickly telling you a tiny bit about my company, and then we can do a quick product overview, and then I'll jump right into a demo. So I want to give one more shout out to Semtech and AWS because they are great partners and they do really amazing things. And if I may say so, I think we do some pretty amazing things at Semtech as well. We really are all about helping people by making things smarter. From the start, we've been all in on AWS technology. If it's not our IP, it's typically AWS to build on top of. And that's served us well. In just a few years, we have achieved recognition as an AWS consulting partner, advanced, as well as we've earning several competencies, including IoT, machine learning, retail, and industrial software. And I'm really pleased to say that in just another day or two, we'll be announcing a few more competencies that we've earned in machine learning operations and artificial intelligence. So pretty exciting. We started in Southern California, and we've taken those things that we've learned earning those competencies I just mentioned with a number of customers, and we're starting to expand into products as well. In addition to Southern California, we're now in Seattle, Dallas, DC Metro, India, and various other places. We're really proud to be building a global footprint. And like I said, we're taking those things that we are learning from our customers and all of our experiences, and with great partnership with AWS, we're expanding into a number of products. So 2021 is going to be a pretty exciting year for us. We hope you stay tuned. So before I get into our smart building kit, I'll get to that, I promise. I just want to chat for a second about IoT and LoRaWAN. I didn't make any special slides for this. I mean, we're all pretty saturated with the IoT message. It's pretty exciting that we have billions of devices around the world connected. Billions more will be connected, and they're all going to start working together in one use case or another. And because we have so many use cases, that means we have a real demand for a number of different network connectivity options. And I think there's little debate that low-powered, wide area connectivity is absolutely one of those options. And it drives a great deal of growth currently in IoT, and we believe it's going to continue to do that. The LoRaWAN protocol standardization is particularly important because it helps drive the adoption through secure bidirectional communications. It also has a very rich multi-source value chain from chipsets to small devices, bigger devices, network applications, and so on and back down. And the LoRaWAN networks are becoming more and more available as well. There are some national networks, and you can actually create your own without a great deal of difficulty. And LoRaWAN, again, it is really great also because it applies itself to hybrid networks using Wi-Fi, cellular, and so on. So LoRaWAN is very useful in IoT, we've kind of discussed, but we still need to decide how it works for us, for you, and as individuals and as companies. You all have your own use cases, and in order to help you explore those at your speed without a whole lot of complexity, we've put together a smart building kit for you to see just what you can do with it. The SBK, like I said, is literally, it's a reference kit in a box. It comes in a box. It empowers you to experiment. I'm going to use that word a lot while you're building your use cases. Those can be standard use cases that we all hear when we're talking about smart buildings, things like employee safety and well-being. That has a whole new meaning now in this, given this last year. Security, sustainability, operating efficiencies, and so on. I want to emphasize again the word experiment. Over my career, I've spoken with hundreds, maybe thousands of customers about different types of technology. And no matter which one that is, especially though in IoT, we talk with a lot of customers who, a huge portion of them just aren't ready to have conversations that sound almost like science fiction and are being marketed that way. So we need to kind of help meet them where they are on their journey. And that again is where the kit comes from. Many people, many customers just need that ability to mix things up a little bit without even the rigid confines of a POC or something more advanced than that. So the kit, it's not intended to be a complete solution at all. It's not production ready, which means you might find gaps in what it is you would like to see versus what it offers. But I think that there's real beauty in those spaces. As a product manager, that's where I want to be, because that helps you define and explore the areas that are ultimately going to help you assess what's valuable to you or not. And it helps you define what your requirements need to be. So on with the kit. It features a bunch of things. I'm not going to show you the actual box, but in that box come a number of sensors. We have little things like this grid eye sensor. As a matter of fact, this counts people in a given space. We have temperature and humidity sensors. We have a desk sensor that helps you understand exactly who's sitting at which desk. We also have this cool little leak detector, which you can deploy in a number of areas, be it up in your attic, detect if your roof is leaking or not. Perhaps that's been an issue in the past, or perhaps in your employee's kitchen. It's a fun little thing to do. So we offer these sensors, several altogether. And in addition to that, though, those just generate data. So we also bring in two of these, which are Wi-Fi hubs that are enabled for LoRaWAN. So that gets the data up to these hubs, which can then be sent up to this. This is a cellular backhaul device. It comes preloaded with a gigabyte's worth of data on a 1-year plan. That might not seem a lot in this video streaming age, but for LoRaWAN, we're talking about little bits of data. It's more than enough. So as I mentioned, that kit is pre-configured, ready to go right out of the box. You just need to plug in your gateway, do a quick firmware update. Sometimes, not always. Get connected to your mini hubs, and then start pulling the plastic battery tabs out of your sensors and deploy those wherever you'd like. In addition to that, that's great, but you need to see that data. And so in a minute, I will go ahead and show you the dashboard that comes with that kit, which is really nice. And also, if you decide that you want or you have the technical aptitude within your company, we give you the access to our code. It's just open source code that you have, where you can add additional sensors or different sensor types. You can make changes to the dashboard that we offer, or you can replace it with your own. And you can do a lot more than what we do. And again, that's the point. We encourage you to grow. Additional benefits are that it's mobile. I think I mentioned that. It's built on top of AWS's IoT Core for LoRaWAN, which is essential, especially if you're thinking about scaling and taking advantage of future capabilities. It's the way to go. It's easy to set up and take down. It's affordable. It's low risk. And it helps you, again, drive to your value assessments quicker rather than later at your pace with freedom to do as you will. So I'll tell you what, I think I've spoken enough about the overview. Why don't we go ahead and take a quick demo? And here's the Smart Building Kit dashboard that I mentioned. Before I go too far, I'll share with you a little use case I've been thinking about lately, and I think it's relevant to a lot of people. That is that I am managing an office that has been mostly vacant for the past year, and that people are slowly starting to come back into work in the office. And I want to make sure that we are still applying the right types of policies, keeping people socially distanced while they're able to collaborate in person safely. And so that's kind of what I've been playing with for the most part. So no strict script here. I'm just, again, it's a kit. I get to play with it as I will. So that's what I'm doing. Let's get started. The first thing I see here is a desk overview. Since I mentioned that I want to make sure people are socially distancing while being able to collaborate, I've set desks and seating assignments in such a way that complies with that distancing. What I can see here is I have 5 individuals currently being monitored, if you will, their desks, not the individuals. And I can see one here, Yuri in particular. His desk is totally unoccupied right now and has been for quite a while. That's because Yuri has opted to work remotely 100% of the time. So I'm going to have to make a little change there because one of our new hires has decided to go ahead and come into the office a little bit more as she onboards. I can look at this visualization, both seeing what's been going on activity-wise in the last 24 hours, or the last week, or the last month. I find this particularly useful because it helps detect trends. For instance, I would prefer to see people out of the office on weekends, which I do, and and other things that might come into play. I would actually prefer right now to see a little more orange and a little more darker blue than lighter blue. But here we have what we have. Also on this overview of the dashboard, I can see what rooms I have occupied. In addition to that, I have door and windows and temperature sensors. And for instance, I can detect when certain doors are open or closed. Sometimes I want them open, sometimes I want them closed. And uh, within, a few moments, I can see when they actually are closed or that changes. Oh, and lo and behold, there they are. I have a few more doors closed now. That's sort of the typical type of office activity you'd expect to see. I can also look at the temperature throughout my office space. I see that there's a bit of a disparity between my second sensor and my first. I happen to know why that is. It just so happens that the cooler temperature one is actually in a room where I've cracked the window a little bit to help with ventilation. And then finally, on the right, upper right side here, we see average occupancy. And what that's really telling me is throughout my entire space and all my different devices, what percentage of the time, what percentage of that time am I seeing some occupancy? And this is about what I'd expect to see. I'm still driving for kind of a 50-50 in the office, out of the office ratio. And this is a little low yet, but we're just getting ramped up. And of course, this takes into account the 24-hour day. So I would never expect to see this thing any more than, say, 25%, maybe 40% during busy times. So these next tabs just give me a little more granularity into what I'm looking at. Here's a more specific view of each desk sensor, for instance. And again, I also have the option of changing what time span I want to look at here for each of these. Comes in handy. And then this is kind of a fun thing, that grid eye sensor. Now I have these deployed in my conference rooms. My conference rooms don't have great ventilation right now. I do not want to see a whole lot of activity in these places. And gladly, since the 10th, yesterday, I haven't seen a whole lot in the last 24 hours. That's great. If I span these out a little bit, I might see some activity here. Certainly, last Thursday, occupancy today around 7. That's pretty good. Wednesday, that's a little concerning. 42 people in that particular room. I know what size it is. I really wouldn't want more than 3 people in that room. So I should kind of, make sure that we don't have a whole bunch of people congregating in there at any one time. The same thing kind of goes for this view. That looks fine. If I go out on a month view, I see one particular spike, 172 people in that office in 24 hours. That's a little concerning because I know that it's really more like 172 people in that conference room in the last 8 hours or so. So in this case, good, happy story. People weren't cramming in there. It was just an experiment. But if I saw that for real, I would definitely want to get involved with people and let them know that that's unsafe. Fortunately, it was an experiment. So here I am playing with my environment tab. This again, it just shows me temperature and humidity. I can see again that one room is a bit cooler. That happens to be because there's a window open, and that's as expected. Sometimes I might see, in this case, my humidity drop. That could be because there was a blip in connectivity, but I'm not too worried about that any given time. The leak detection is telling me there isn't currently a leak. That's great. We had one earlier today, as a matter of fact. Somebody left the kitchen sink in the cafeteria running and things overflowed. Bit of a mess. Things are better now. I think everyone has learned a lesson now, so we don't have to worry about that again, which is really good news. So let's see, what else can I do to move forward here? My security tab. is going to show me which doors are currently open or closed. That's as I expected. I want to keep that window open as much as possible for ventilation. If it happens to be closed, oh, it's closed. Somebody closed it. I either have to go give somebody a hoodie or a sweater to wear, or I've got to get that window back open. So we'll check that out. Data is interesting, but if you don't have context, it's really hard to understand what you have. So we offer a couple of ways to do that. And the first way, of course, here is by sharing with you a map. This is just a real general floor layout that comes with the kit itself. You don't necessarily have to use it. You can upload your own easily enough. It can be a hand drawing. It can be your own schematic. But we do have some limitations onto the file type and the size, but that's easily workable. So I mentioned earlier that Yuri happens to be opting to stay 100% remote. When he comes in, he can sit in a satellite area. So for now, we're going to go ahead and take him out. But as a matter of fact, I know where our new hire is going to be sitting. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on his sensor here. This is a desk sensor. And I'm going to move him over here closer to Cato because Cato's going to help with his onboarding. And this way they'll be distanced, but still close enough to be able to collaborate and work together. So that looks about right. I can then go over to the Settings tab, which is just a list of all my devices, and I can sort those in various ways, usually high, low, that sort of thing. I have a nice simple search. I know that Yuri is moving on, so why don't I find where he is? Up here he is. This is the desk sensor that was applied to him. I can see what's going on here. I've got the ID. That's not configurable, but I can change the name and the location if I wish of where that sensor is to account for the new hire. I'm looking at this really quickly. I'm seeing that no one's been on that particular sensor since August. Everyone's been gone. That doesn't surprise me. The sensor's turned off, and battery and signal strength will also be unknown for now. I can go ahead, though, and change the name of this device to Mochi, who is our new hire, and she will be super excited to know that she has Yuri's sensor. Oh, I see. Up here in the search, I still have Yuri up there, but now I can go here and see, yep, there she is. So that's as expected. I can also go back to the map here, and if I hover really quickly over that device, I can see that is now Mochi, and I can even go up to the dashboard as well, and I'll see Yuri's device now changed to Mochi. That replicates within just a moment or two of the system. So this is all good news. Hopefully, this just gives you an overview of what a day in the life of someone like me who's experimenting with these sensors throughout my office as we return back to some kind of uh, group activities can look like for you. You can decide your own use cases. I encourage you to do so. And there we are. Good luck and have fun. Like I said, it gives you a dashboard. In this case, it's a really simple dashboard. I'll start by saying the use case I've been playing a lot with lately because it seems relevant is that I have an office space where people are slowly beginning to return back to work. We still have a mostly remote policy going on, but I want to make sure while people are here, we are following safety protocols as is necessary. So the first thing I'm seeing here is this desk overview. What it allows me to see is in this case, 5 desks that I currently have those desk sensors deployed to, and I can see what kind of activity is going on in these things. Red, of course, simply means no one's there. Blue indicates that someone has been there and for a longer duration of time than not. In addition to this desk overview, I can see some high-level information from my other sensors, such as room occupancy, whether or not a door or a window is open or shut, even temperature. And in the upper right here, I have this great little average occupancy, which to me is important. It might not be very relevant to some, but I'm trying to see overall occupancy in my building. This is on a 24-hour scale, and right now I can see that this is about what I expect. I don't want to see a great deal of activity here going on right now. So it's just at an eye's glance going to tell me how that's going. I can dig into additional spaces, but first let me also show you that it starts with a 24-hour view. But the nice thing is I can go to a 1-week view and even a 1-month view. This just shows me the past month's worth of data where I can start seeing some trends. One thing that I'm noticing here is that For one particular desk, I have 0 activity all the way throughout. And it's also got some kind of random device ID name, which of course is telling me it hasn't been deployed yet. I actually have a plan to deploy that. I'll show you how I do that. We happen to have a new hire coming in, and I'll show you how we get her set up. So I can go through some of these additional tabs, and um, I can see a little more granularity into what I'm looking at. Again, desks are kind of important to me right now. So I can go ahead and look at individual desks, at individual trends with a slightly different visualization than I had in the previous dashboard view. I like that. Another thing I like is this grid eye view. I have these deployed in my 2 conference rooms. And right now, frankly, my conference rooms don't have great ventilation. And so I want to discourage use of these right now. So what I'm seeing here the last 24 hours is telling me not a whole lot's going on. But if I look over the past week or the past month, I see some activities. And are they spiking or not? In this case, this is showing me for this particular room, I have had 7 people over the course of a day last Friday. That's telling me that unless they were all in there at once, people are going into 1s and 2s, and that's just fine. In some other instances, though, like with this other conference room I have, we had 172 people cited or counted through the course of that day, which, given the size of that conference room, is too much. So this was an experiment. I'm glad to see that number. But if this was more real, of course, I would be working with my colleagues to make sure that we just limit the activity in those rooms. The environment tab just shows me a couple of neat things. In this case, temperature. You'll see that both on an average and then just in a little more individual sense, I have 2 of those sensors right now. One is showing a 4-degree variance from the other. That happens to be because I know in my experiment, I've actually set one of those temperature sensors in an area where I have a window cracked, again, to kind of help with a little ventilation through this. We're in Seattle right now. It gets a little cold, but we're hardy to deal with it. I also have this leak detection sensor, which I showed you earlier. It's fun. Right now, it's showing me no leak at all, but if that state changes, which it should in just a moment, it's going to tell me that I have a leak. Now, this one actually shows the state change. One of the things to keep in mind with LoRa types of sensors is that we want to preserve battery life. So it's going to show me a state change, but it's not necessarily going to keep telling me it's got a leak. And sure enough, there it is. It's just showing me that we have a leak. I have 2 views of this. One, again, is that state change, which is great. But then if I want to know currently what's going on, it'll check occasionally and let me know that there is a leak because of that little red dot in the right corner of that visualization box. Okay, doors and windows. We know what door and window sensors are, and this is just telling me currently what's open and shut. I mentioned I had a window open. It was closed earlier today, but it's now open as I can see. I have various open-close activity for these other doors, as you would expect in an office, people going in and out of rooms and that sort of thing. Of course, my front entryway and so forth. The motion sensors are very similar. It's just these are deployed throughout various offices as well, so I have an idea of what's being occupied and what isn't. So I mentioned earlier that context is really important when it comes to understanding our data. And we've offered some very basic ways for you to do that. What we're looking at right now is a map that comes with the kit. I'm using this same one. For me, it works for my experiment, but you're allowed to add your own office schematic if you choose, or even a hand drawing. It's just an image. And you can do that simply by opening the edit function, and which allows you to do a couple things. Not only can you change that map image, you can also identify where you've deployed all of your devices. So in this case, for instance, I mentioned that I have a new hire, and I have one desk sensor that I want to deploy to where that new hire will be sitting. So I went ahead and I can just by simply pointing and clicking, identify where their space is going to be, and then I click where that area is, and there it goes. So very, very simple way to keep track of what devices I have and where they're deployed. And I can go ahead and save that really quickly, nice and easily. And then I can add a little more context too by going into my settings. So standard tabular view of what, all of my devices that I have. Right now, it's just kind of not sorted at all, but I have some easy sorting functions that I want to do. And I can go ahead and do a quick search on something as well. Say, for instance, I'm really interested to know where I am. and here I am. So that's great. Looks like it should be. What this also tells me, though, is when my last message was delivered, so I can make sure that the device in my office or any device is phoning home regularly. And then I can also see what my current battery life is, really nice to have, and then generally what my signal strength is. This might indicate kind of low, but I'm picking up data, I'm phoning home regularly, so that signal is quite strong. I did mention that I have a new hire. Her name happens to be Mochi. She looks an awful lot like one of my cats. So we can go ahead and just go into some basic configuration changes here. And instead of that meaningless device ID number, meaningless to humans anyways, I can go ahead and add her name. And then I can also go ahead and change the location of where that device is simply by saying, let's see, I believe she is in the West Quad. West Quad, that's her seating area. And then I can go ahead and save that as well. And this will perpetuate throughout the rest of my visualizations pretty easily. So for instance, if I go back to a dashboard here, there we go. There's Mochi. The last thing to do is make sure that her sensor, her desk sensor, is deployed and the battery tab is pulled and she's ready to go. I can start adding her to. All right. Well, that is about it. It's a simple kit that that's very versatile and lots of fun to use, believe it or not. And I hope that you give it a shot. Thank you.
Matthew, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for joining us for the session on the Semtech and TensorIoT Smart Building IoT Reference Kit. If you'd like to learn more, please visit the AWS IoT Solution Repository and the link provided here.